And if this doesn't make you think of eugenics, forced sterilization to purify the race, then I don't know how else to make it clear for you. Hi there, my name's Leach. I'm a real-life lawyer on a mission to demystify the law and how it affects your everyday life. Today, I'm going to react to Britney Spears' latest court testimony. What's the situation? Where are we at? What's next for Britney? Let's talk about it. If you are not up to date on the current Britney Spears situation, I highly suggest that you check out my 2 other videos that I've already done about Britney. It's what the people want, and I have to give them what they demand, you know? And so I've gotten a lot of requests for this video, so let's dive right on in. Before we get started, I'll say I'm a lawyer, but I'm not your lawyer. Nothing that I say should be construed as legal advice, and you should always seek the advice of a licensed attorney before making any legal decisions. Nor am I conservatorship expert. I am a lawyer here doing research and learning along with you. So in case you missed it, on Wednesday, June 23rd, Britney Spears made a very brave 20-minute long statement to the court regarding her conservatorship, the abuses that she's suffered, and her wishes moving forward. This is really the first time that we've gotten to hear that much from Britney regarding her conservatorship, and it was pretty horrifying to hear the types of abuse that she has experienced over the 13 years of her conservatorship. So just to give you a little bit of the backstory, go watch my first video on this, but here's the basics. Britney has been, you know, mega famous since she was a literal child, with paparazzi constantly berating her. Then in her early 20s, she has 2 kids, back to back. Immediately after that, she starts having some mental health issues, we'll say, likely due to some postpartum stuff that we just didn't really talk about in 2007. She has her breakdown, she shaves her head, she hits the paparazzi car with the umbrella, chaos ensues, everyone makes fun of her for it, people are brutal to her. If you watch any old SNL episode from 2006 through 2008, I can almost guarantee you in every single one of those, there is a joke where Britney Spears is the butt of it.
Okay, in our wedding vows, we promised to bust a move, keep it funky, and always be each other's pimps. And it was really awesome at first, y'all.
It was a pervasive cultural phenomenon to be mean to Britney Spears around 2007. We were awful to her. So Jamie Spears, her father, along with his weird cronies, used this as an opportunity to get a conservatorship declared so that they could take control of her and her estate. At first, Jamie was just granted a temporary conservatorship of the person because Britney Spears was in a mental hold for 72 hours at UCLA Medical Center. So just to give you the basics, again, go watch my video, but in case you don't know, there are 2 types of conservatorships. One is conservatorship of the person and the other is of the estate. Conservatorship of the person means that the conservator has power over the conservatees' day-to-day living, where they live, where they go, who they see, what they eat, the medications they take, and their other medical treatment, which we'll get into. And then a conservatorship of the estate gives the conservator power over the conservatee's estate, meaning all of their money, all of their finances, all of their assets, and the conservator is supposed to do what's in the best interest of the conservatee, invest responsibly, use the money to support the conservatee's life, etc. There is technically court oversight that kind of checks in every once in a while to see what's going on with the books, but at least in Britney's case, and I believe in a lot of other cases, the amount of oversight is questionable. Also, theoretically, the court is supposed to take the conservatee's wishes and desires into account, both at the point of the creation of the conservatorship, but also throughout the conservatorship. However, what often happens is that the conservatee isn't even in the courtroom when a conservatorship is formed, so they don't even get to be heard prior to the formation of this conservatorship. Basically, if a doctor deems someone to be mentally incapacitated and a judge recognizes that and rules that a conservatorship is appropriate, that's pretty much it. And the conservatee's wishes will be kind of taken into consideration throughout the conservatorship to maybe change the conservatorship around, but in terms of actually ending a conservatorship, there is not much that conservatees can do without mounting tons and tons and tons of evidence to show that they are mentally competent enough to live by themselves without the conservatorship in place. Because, you know, they're crazy, so like they don't know what they want, right? Basically, it's just a snowball effect. Once it starts, once you're deemed incapacitated and someone gets a conservatorship formed, the snowball starts rolling and it's really hard to stop. That's what happened here. Britney Spears' dad was able to use her 72-hour hold at UCLA Medical Center and her determination to be incapacitated at that time as a reason to start this emergency or temporary conservatorship. And from there, in 2008, he was named a permanent conservator both of the person and of her estate. So conservatees do have rights. I mean, they get to have a say, theoretically, in their conservatorship, and they have the right to be appointed an attorney, which Britney did have, though for many years in the conservatorship, it doesn't really seem like that appointed attorney really did much to help her vocalize her concerns with her conservatorship. She tried to hire her own attorneys, but because she had been deemed incapacitated, a judge ruled that because she's incapacitated, she didn't have the capacity to enter into an attorney-client relationship. Like, once you're in, you're in. So it took a literal legion of fans and attorneys and activists screaming to free Britney before this came to light and before she started to have a voice in her own conservatorship. So Britney has been under this conservatorship since 2007. It was made permanent in 2008. There have been different co-conservators with Jamie Spears, her dad, but her dad has really been the main figure throughout this. There have been some shady things going on. Again, watch my video for more detail on that, but basically they're spending her money in a way that seems frivolous, and they are working her like a circus monkey, basically, while also saying that she's incapacitated, even though she's doing like tours and Las Vegas residencies and dropping albums, but she like can't handle living on her own somehow. However, in 2019, Jamie Spears was hospitalized for health concerns and a new temporary conservator was named, Jody Montgomery, to be a co-conservator on Britney's conservatorship. And this seems to have been the beginning of the end of his death grip over her life and her career. However, it's not like Britney Spears never spoke up against her conservatorship or the abuses that she felt she was experiencing. For example, in 2016, she spoke with an investigator for the court and told them that she believed she was being abused and that her conservatorship was not what she wanted. These documents, however, were under seal until very recently, so this has been going on for years. However, again, once a doctor deems you incapacitated and a judge adopts that and creates a conservatorship, the notes of one investigator of the court is probably not enough to overturn that conservatorship, because again, the snowball is starting and it's growing and stopping it is almost impossible. It is common practice that a court investigator will talk to a conservatee to make sure that the conservatorship is going smoothly and that the conservatee's wishes are being taken into consideration. However, again, doesn't seem to have much sway. So back in February, I made a video reacting to the Framing Britney Spears New York Times documentary, and at that point there had just been a hearing regarding her conservatorship. She had chosen a wealth management company, Bessemer Trust, to take over co-conservatorship of her estate with Jamie Spears. And Jamie Spears and his legal team were pushing to not give Bessemer Trust as much power and to make Jamie Spears, or to keep Jamie Spears as the main conservator of her estate. However, in that situation, the judge ruled against Jamie Spears, granting Bessemer Trust equal power over Britney Spears' estate, which felt for a lot of people like one of the first wins for Britney and one of the first kind of cracking away of Jamie Spears' grip over her conservatorship. And this probably started to happen partially due to Jamie Spears' health concerns, also his drinking, and he had a physical altercation with one of Britney Spears' young teen sons. Like, seems bad. Seems like not the right person to be controlling your life and finances. So what has happened since that February hearing? Well, in March 2021, Britney Spears' legal team petitioned the court to have Jody Montgomery instated as her permanent conservator of her person. And this makes a lot of sense, to bring someone outside of the family in to control her life and her estate, because there's a lot of conflict of interest, especially when this amount of money and fame are involved, and given how contentious her relationship with her father is. However, Jody Montgomery is a professional conservator who Britney Spears has paid over $200,000 to be her conservator since 2019. Like, this is how she makes a living. And that can be totally fine, but if you watch the Netflix series Dirty Money, there's an episode called Guardians Inc. that's all about this conservatorship company system and how so much abuse can occur when people are trying to make a living and make money off of controlling an incapacitated or disabled person's life and estate. However, Britney's lawyers are ethically required to do what is in her best interest and to follow Britney Spears' wishes. So hopefully this petition to have Jody Montgomery instated permanently was something that Britney Spears actually wanted.
I'm talking to you today because I feel, again, yes, even Jody is starting to kind of take it too far with me.
So Britney Spears' statement on Wednesday was really powerful. It was the first time she got to speak at length about her conservatorship. She did so before the court, virtually at least, and was able to voice a lot of her concerns with her conservatorship, including that she feels she's being abused and ganged up on.
I want to feel heard, and I'm telling you this again so maybe you can understand the depth and the degree and the damage that they did to me back then. I want changes, and I want changes going forward. I deserve changes. Ma'am, I didn't know I could petition the conservatorship to end it. I'm sorry for my ignorance, but I honestly didn't know that. It's embarrassing and demoralizing what I've been through, and that's the main reason. I've never said it openly. And mainly, I didn't want to say it openly because I honestly didn't think anyone would believe me. I shouldn't be in a conservatorship if I can work and provide money and work for myself and pay other people. It makes no sense. The laws need to change. I truly believe this conservatorship is abusive. And now we can sit here all day and say, oh, conservatorships are here to help people. But ma'am, there's 1,000 conservatorships that are abusive as well. I don't feel like I can live a full life.
There was some pretty shocking revelations in her statement, including that she has been forced to have an IUD implanted in her for a very long time, even though she would like to have children.
And I would like to progressively move forward, and I want to have the real deal. I want to be able to get married and have a baby. I was told right now in the conservatorship I'm not able to get married or have a baby. I have a ID inside of myself right now so I don't get pregnant. I wanted to take the ID out so I could start trying to have another baby, but this so-called team won't let me go to the doctor to take it out because they don't want me to have children, any more children. So basically this conservatorship is doing me way more harm than good. I feel ganged up on, and I feel bullied, and I feel left out and alone. And I'm tired of feeling alone.
And a large part of the reaction since Britney Spears made her statement has been around the idea of disability rights and how her statement and her situation have brought to light a lot of abuses that have been happening for years. So there are differing estimates, but currently there are around 1.5 million people in the United States who are under conservatorships like Britney Spears's. Conservatorships are things that are thought of as something that only happens to older people, but they also are formed for people with other disabilities, autism, people who can no longer care for themselves, people with terminal illnesses, or people who have other intellectual and developmental disabilities who aren't able to care for their day-to-day life. Because of the sensitive nature of these proceedings, of the creation of a conservatorship and of the conservatee themselves, often these proceedings are under seal and private. And this makes sense. A lot of times court documents are filed under seal or are made private because of the sensitivity of the subject matter, especially if the person in question is a minor or there is sexual abuse happening. And it theoretically makes sense here too, because the person under the conservatorship has been deemed incapacitated, which under the law, a person deemed incapacitated is treated very similarly to a minor. It is a very patronizing system. However, this level of privacy can come at the cost that a lot of conservatees' rights are being infringed upon and we don't know about it. The whole theory behind our judicial system is that it should be public knowledge, public information, with the idea that if it's public, then people are more likely to follow the rules. Is this always true? No. Are public documents really that accessible when they were protected by a paywall and the person would have to go to their city or county offices to get a hold of court records? Maybe not. That's a topic for another video though. Conservatorships are originally meant to be a last-ditch resort for people who really cannot handle their day-to-day life and finances. However, they seem to have become more of a go-to solution, even though there are less restrictive alternatives available, such as what's known as supported decision-making, supplemental needs trusts, or other options that aren't as difficult to get out from under as a conservatorship is. Conservatorships are kind of permanent, it seems, and they also have become the go-to thing. And because conservatorships are state-sanctioned, that means that the rights that are being violated by these conservatees are technically protected under the Bill of Rights. You have a right to bodily autonomy, to liberty, to privacy. The list goes on. And yet a lot of these abuses are occurring because of the private nature of these proceedings, as well as because of the long history of patronizing treatment of people with disabilities in this country. Specifically regarding the IUD that Britney Spears claims she had implanted without her permission and that she would like to have removed so that she could have children, a lot of people, I think rightly so, are comparing this to forced sterilization. Her tubes aren't tied. Once it's removed, she theoretically could be able to have children again. However, an IUD is like 99.9% effective. It's basically sterilization, and she didn't want it, so it's forced. And the fact that she's been under this conservatorship for 13 years, those were her like reproductive years. She's 39. Like, those ovaries are shriveling. And if she wants to have a baby, now it's a lot more dangerous and difficult for her to do so. They took away the years of reproductive freedom that she had as part of this conservatorship. And this is not an isolated incident. Abuse of people who have been deemed mentally incapacitated by the court, especially with regards to forced sterilization, has a very long history in this country. For example, in 1927, in a Supreme Court case called Buck v. Bell, the Supreme Court upheld the ability to sterilize forcibly people who are mentally incapacitated. Specifically, the court upheld the right to sterilize a feeble-minded woman who had been committed to a state mental institution. And Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes infamously wrote the following highly offensive statement: "3 generations of imbeciles are enough." A ruling that to this day has not been officially overturned. And if this doesn't make you think of eugenics, forced sterilization to purify the race, then I don't know how else to make it clear for you. Now, while this case, Buck v. Bell, has not officially been overturned by the court, another case from 1942 called Skinner v. Oklahoma challenged the forced sterilization of certain convicted criminals, and the court unanimously ruled that reproduction was a fundamental right. With Justice William O. Douglas writing, "Any experiment the state conducts is to his irreparable injury. He is forever deprived of a basic liberty." Skinner v. Oklahoma is a common case that you read in law school that kind of was the start of the idea that procreation is a fundamental right protected by the Bill of Rights. It's not listed explicitly in the Bill of Rights. However, Amendment 9 says that the rights that are in the Bill of Rights are meant to be interpreted such that maybe what's not explicitly protected could implicitly be found to be protected. So the Supreme Court has interpreted Amendment 9 and Amendment 14 to protect certain rights like privacy and bodily autonomy, including procreation. I made a whole video about Roe v. Wade if you want to hear more about that. So those are the Supreme Court cases on a federal level, but most states at this point have outlawed forced sterilization. However, for example, it wasn't until 2014 that the state of California outlawed forced sterilization of certain inmates. And that is indicative of the long history of forced sterilization in this country. It was often used as a means to coerce and control poor people, immigrants, Native Americans, people of color, people who were deemed others. It's a form of eugenics in practice, if not in name. It means we have deemed people who are disabled not worthy of procreating, and that we would like to clean them from the human race. You don't have to say it explicitly for it to be implied. And this also elucidates a larger issue, and that is that Britney Spears is coming from a very privileged position. She's white, she's wealthy, and she has a legion of fans behind her screaming in support of her rights. This is not the case for most people who are experiencing conservatorship abuse right now, or who have experienced forced sterilization or other abuses due to their disabilities. There are many people who, in addition to dealing with sexism and ableism in the court system, they're also dealing with racism and classism and other isms that, even though our court system is supposed to be unbiased, generally means that they are not going to get an unbiased day in court. So there has been some rumblings in Congress about conservatorship abuse. However, conservatorships generally are governed on a state-by-state basis, so change needs to happen on a state-by-state basis. Many people, including Haley Moss, an attorney who wrote a great piece in Teen Vogue that I used for a lot of information for this video, are pushing for conservatorships to be deemed an absolute last resort. Again, there are far less restrictive alternatives available to help people who actually need it in a way that actually takes into consideration their needs, their wishes, and their rights. And some people are pushing for the abolition of conservatorships altogether. Some people see them as this relic of old paternalistic ideas about how to deal with people with disabilities. And a lot of people, I think, are hopeful that Britney's story will be the start of a larger revolution towards pushing against the conservatorship system and the paternalistic way that we as a country and as our judicial system handle people who need a little bit extra help in their day-to-day lives. People are hoping that this will lend greater visibility to disability rights and hopefully give people a voice who have otherwise been silenced for years. So Britney has another hearing scheduled for July 14th. Her statement in court on Wednesday wasn't actually a formal petition for the cancellation of her conservatorship. It will hopefully be helpful evidence to overturn her conservatorship. However, her legal team has to file a formal petition to end the conservatorship, the hearing for which is in July. At that hearing, Britney has an uphill battle. She has to prove that she no longer needs this conservatorship. She's going to have to do this through her own testimony, through doctor's testimony that she's no longer incapacitated, through proof of her ability to handle her day-to-day finances and day-to-day life. She can also bring in her friends and her relatives to speak on her behalf. However, Jamie Spears and the other conservators will have the same opportunity to show that Britney Spears is not capable of handling herself on her own. Some lawyers with a little bit more expertise than me are saying that the most likely outcome is that Britney Spears' conservatorship will stay intact, but perhaps Jamie Spears will be removed as conservator, and hopefully there will be some more lenient restrictions to her ability to live her life and manage her own finances. The reality of this is that because these hearings are largely private, there's a lot of evidence that was presented in 2008 when the conservatorship was formed and that has been presented throughout the last 13 years that we just haven't seen. So we don't really know what the judge is going off of here. We can see that Britney seems to be fine, more or less, that she seems to be being used for her talents to make money, and that her conservators seem to be making a pretty penny off of the control of her life and estate. However, there could be a lot more evidence there that shows that Britney Spears still needs the support of people to help her live her day-to-day life. However, it's arguable that a conservatorship is not the correct way to go about that. But again, because she's already under this conservatorship, getting out from under it is going to be a really, really difficult task for Britney. I think it's a good opportunity for all of us to educate ourselves a little bit more on disability rights. I know there's a lot that I don't know that I could learn about this subject that I think Britney Spears' story elucidates and brings to light, but then also there's issues that Britney Spears doesn't have to deal with because of her privilege and her position in the spotlight. Once again, as many of my videos tend to conclude, our judicial system does a really, really bad job of taking mental health into consideration when making rulings or enacting punishments or enacting justice. If you have resources for people who would like to educate themselves on disability rights, please comment them down below. I will also be leaving a few links in the description in case you want to learn more. What are your thoughts? How did Britney's statement make you feel? What did it make you think about? How do you feel about Britney in general? How are you feeling today? Tell me everything in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you found this video helpful. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good day. Goodbye.